February 20, 1943, 1:47 a.m. Lake Tinjo, Telemark, Nazi-occupied Norway. The wind screams across the black water like a living thing, whipping ice crystals into your face until your skin burns. 9 men in soaked white camouflage crawl the last meters on their bellies toward the railway ferry M/F Hydro, her running lights dimmed to almost nothing, riding low in the water from the weight of her secret cargo. You can taste the cold. It's so sharp it feels metallic on the tongue. At the bow, 23-year-old Leif Reinert Larsen, Shetlanded Leif, the fisherman who's already sunk more German steel than most admirals, raises a gloved hand. The team freezes. Breath clouds hang in the moonlight like ghosts. Below deck, guarded by armed sentries and wrapped in steel drums marked only with cryptic code numbers, sit 28 canisters containing every last drop of heavy water the Third Reich possesses. Enough, German physicists believe, to build an atomic bomb before the Americans, enough to turn the entire course of the war. One of the Norwegians, Knut Haukelid, eases forward, wire cutters ready. The chain-link fence glints. Somewhere inside the ferry, a German sailor coughs. The sound carries across the water and seems to stop every heart on the shore. Leif's eyes flick to the second hand on his watch. The Hydro is scheduled to sail in exactly 13 minutes. If they miss this window, the heavy water reaches the Reich by morning. There will be no second chance. He nods once. The first man slips over the rail and vanishes into the shadow of the hull. You wouldn't hear the splash if you were standing 10 feet away. The iron ladder is slick with rime. Leif's boots find each rung by memory more than sight. One slip and the clang would bring every German on board running. Below him, Joachim Roneberg, only 23 himself, but already the calmest man in the resistance, breathes through his mouth to keep the frost from crusting his eyelashes. They drop onto the car deck. The air changes instantly. Diesel, wet wool, and something sweeter. Machine oil from the railway cars chained in rows. Between 2 flatbeds sit the drums. Gray, unmarked except for a faint stenciled swastika, and the code letters K/4/04. 28 of them, the future of mankind in painted steel. Knut Haukelid is already kneeling, unpacking the explosives from a sausage skin rucksack. British plastic explosive, smell like marzipan, molded into sausage-shaped charges. He works fast, almost tenderly, wiring the detonators with fingers that should be shaking but aren't. A German voice echoes from the stairwell above, routine chatter, bored, boots on metal, coming down. The Norwegians melt into the shadows between the trucks. Leif's hand closes around the hilt of his Fairbairn Sykes knife. The footsteps stop one level up. A match flares, someone lighting a cigarette. The smell drifts down and hangs like incense. 30 endless seconds. The footsteps move away. Knut finishes the last connection and sets the timer. 2 pencil fuses, 30 minutes each, one is a backup. Enough time to get clear, not enough for the Germans to find and disarm the charges once the ferry is underway. Leif taps each man on the shoulder. Time to leave. That's when they hear it. A low metallic groan from the forward hold. Not the ship settling, something shifting. One of the drums has worked loose from its lashings in the swell and is rolling, slow and heavy, toward the open hatch that leads to the passenger deck. If it falls through that hatch, the noise will wake the dead and the entire German guard detachment. The drum rolls like thunder in a whisper, steel rim kissing steel in a rhythm that mocks the men's pounding hearts. It's gaining speed now, nudged by the ferry's gentle rock against the dockside pilings. 3 feet from the hatch, 2. The gap yawns like a mouth, ready to swallow the secret hole and spit out an alarm that could doom them all. Leif doesn't hesitate.
He lunges from the shadows, body low and coiled like a wolf, one arm snaking out to hook the drum's edge. His fingers clamp down just as the lip clears the threshold. The weight yanks him forward, 200 pounds of liquid deuterium oxide, the lifeblood of Heisenberg's atomic dreams, trying to drag him into the light. His boots skid on the oil-slicked deck, rubber soles screeching softly against rivets. A grunt escapes his lips, bitten off before it can bloom. The team holds its collective breath. Even the wind outside seems to pause, listening. Knut is there in an instant, wedging his shoulder under the curve. Together they heave it back, inch by agonizing inch, sweat beading cold on their brows despite the freeze. The lashings are frayed, sabotage or just war's wear. No time to wonder. They re-rig it with spare wire from the rucksack, knotting it tight to the nearest rail car, hands numb and trembling now from the strain. Joachim scans the stairwell, still clear, but voices murmur above. Closer this time, 2 Germans, perhaps changing watch, their laughter brittle in the Norwegian night. The timer ticks, 28 minutes to detonation. The hydro's engines cough to life below, a diesel heartbeat rumbling through the hull. Steam hisses from valves like a serpent uncoiling. They slip out the way they came, ghosts in white, melting into the tree line as the gangplank thuds up and the mooring line slapped free. Leif risks one last glance back. The ferry eases from the dock, her prow cutting the ink-black lake like a knife through flesh. Lights flicker on in the wheelhouse. A silhouette moves there. The captain, unwitting ferryman of Armageddon. As the hydro vanishes into the mist, a single thought claws at Leif's mind. Did we miss one? Because if even a single drum survives the blast.
February 20th, 1943, 10:35 a.m., 6 kilometers out on Lake Tinshow, 430 meters above sea level. The morning is deceptively bright. Sunlight bounces off fresh snow on the surrounding peaks, turning the lake into a mirror of blue fire. Passengers crowd the rails of the hydro. Norwegian workers going home on Sunday leave. A handful of German soldiers nursing hangovers. 2 women with small children clutching paper bags of bread and smoked fish. None of them know they are sailing with the most dangerous cargo on Earth. Below, in the darkened car deck, the pencil fuses have burned down to their last centimeters. Aboard a tiny fishing boat half a mile astern, Leif Larsen stands motionless at the tiller, coat open to the wind, eyes locked on the ferry's wake. Beside him, Knut Haukelid checks his watch for the 100th time. The rest of the team are already skiing hard for the Swedish border. But these 2 stayed. They need to see it. They need to be sure. 10:41 a.m. A muffled thud rolls across the water. More vibration than sound, like a door slamming deep inside the mountain itself. The hydro's stern lifts slightly, as though the lake has exhaled. For 3 full seconds, nothing happens. Then, the lake erupts. A column of white water shoots 30 meters into the air, carrying railway cars, timber, and steel drums like toys flung by an angry god. The ferry's back breaks with a scream of tortured metal. Passengers tumble from the decks, black dots against the snow-bright sky, mouths open in silent screams no one will ever hear. The bow rises almost vertically, hangs for an impossible moment, then slides backward into the abyss. Bubbles the size of houses boil to the surface. In less than 90 seconds, the pride of the Tinshow route, 1,940 tons of steel and human hope, is gone. Only wreckage remains. Orange lifebelts, a child's shoe, a splintered lifeboat turning lazy circles in the spreading oil slick. Leif's knuckles are white on the tiller. His lips move but no sound comes out. Knut lowers the binoculars, eyes shining. Depth here is over 400 meters. Nothing's coming up from that, he whispers. Leif finally exhales, a long, shuddering breath of fogs and vanishes. Far away in Berlin, a teletype clatters into the Reich Chancellery. Hydro sunk, entire heavy water shipment lost. A single sheet of paper flutters from Albert Speer's hand to the floor. Hitler will never build his bomb. But on the shore,
The cost is already counting itself. 26 Norwegian civilians and 4 Germans gone with the ship. Innocent blood mixed with the poison they carried. Leif turns the boat toward land. The wind that once burned now feels like mercy on his face. He doesn't speak again until they reach the jetty. "We did what we had to," he says, voice raw. "God forgive us." February 21st, 1943. Dawn. Rücken Valley, German headquarters. Oberstleutnant Henrik Müller, Gestapo chief for Telemark, stands on the frozen quay staring at the empty lake as though it has personally betrayed him. The surface is glass smooth again, innocent. Only a few oil streaks and a single child's mitten drifting against the rocks remain to prove the hydro ever existed. Behind him, 200 Wehrmacht troops are tearing the village apart. Doors kicked in, women screaming, men lined up with hands on heads in the snow. Müller has orders direct from Berlin. Find the saboteurs, hang them in the town square, and make an example that will be remembered for 1,000 years. But the birds have already flown. Leif and Knut skied through the night, 30 kilometers over the Hardangervidda plateau in a whiteout that would have killed ordinary men. Now they lie under a rock overhang at 1,400 meters, sharing a single cigarette, watching the sunrise bleed across the snow. Their white camouflage is crusted with ice. Their faces are black with frostbite and exhaustion. Knut breaks the silence first. "They'll burn every farm from here to the coast looking for us." Leif nods, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then we make sure they burn them for nothing." Far away, a convoy of trucks roars into Rücken. Loudspeakers crackle to life, ordering every male between 16 and 60 to report for questioning. Refusal equals immediate execution. The Gestapo has already shot the ferry company director for criminal negligence. Yet not one Norwegian betrays the 9 men. In kitchens, in barns, in mountain huts, people who have never met Leif Larsen whisper the same words like a prayer. They got the water. The devils didn't get it. The Gestapo's rage grows in direct proportion to the silence they meet it with. Within a week, Müller cables Berlin in desperation. Population displays fanatical non-cooperation. Saboteurs, almost certainly assisted by British-trained group, recommend total reprisal measures. Reich Commissioner Terboven signs the order the same day. 50 hostages to be shot if the perpetrators are not surrendered by March 1st. The clock starts ticking again. And somewhere high on the Vida, Leif Larsen reloads his Sten gun, checks the edge on his commando knife, and smiles for the first time in days. They think the story ended when the hydro sunk. They're wrong. The real war for Norway is just beginning. March 1943 to February 1944, the Hardangervidda Plateau, a frozen hell 1,200 meters above the sea. The 9 men never came down from the mountains. While the Gestapo raged through the valleys, Leif Larsen, Knut Haukelid, and Joachim Ronenberg and the others became myths, ghosts in reindeer skin coats who appeared out of blizzards to cut telephone lines, blow bridges, and vanish again before the echoes died. The Germans called them Die Unsichtbaren, the invisible ones. Norwegian children simply called them our boys. But myths bleed. Food ran out in April. They lived on reindeer moss scraped from rocks, on frozen potatoes stolen from German storehouses, on hope. Frostbite took fingers and toes. Scurvy blackened their gums. One man, Arne Kjellstrup, lost so much weight his wedding ring slid off into the snow and was never found. Every week, a coded BBC message crackled through the static. "Congratulations on the hydro. The orchestra played well." It was the only thanks they would ever receive. In Berlin, Werner Heisenberg stared at empty laboratory benches and told his staff the impossible. They would have to start the heavy water program from zero. Years lost. Maybe the war itself lost. He never knew 9 half-starved Norwegians on a plateau of ice had just rewritten history. But the price kept rising. In retaliation for continued sabotage, the Germans executed 53 hostages in the spring of 1943, then another 30 in the autumn. Entire families disappeared into Nakhtem naval camps. When the saboteurs struck the Vimork power station again in November 1943, sinking the last remaining heavy water stocks on a barge, Terboven ordered the scorched earth evacuation of the entire Rücken Valley. 9,000 civilians driven from their homes into the snow. Leif read the news over a smuggled radio and vomited blood into a snowbank. "He'll say we brought this on our own people," he rasped. Knut, face like carved granite, answered, "They'll say the same about Jesus one day. Doesn't make it true." By February 1944, only 4 of the original 9 were still alive and free. On the 28th of that month, British mosquitoes finally obliterated what was left of the Vemork plant in a daylight raid. The heavy water factory burned for 3 days, lighting the night sky red over half of Telemark. That same night, high on the Vita, Leif Larsen raised a tin cup of melted snow to the color of weak tea. "To the dead," he said simply. "To the living," Knut answered. "And to the ones who will never have to grow up in a world with Hitler's bomb." They drank. Far below, the ruins of Vemork glowed like a funeral pyre. The war had 18 more months to run. But in that moment, the atomic race was over. Hitler would die in a bunker with his dreams stillborn. The Norwegians had seen to that. And somewhere in the wind, across the endless white plateau, you can still hear it, an echo of boots on snow, of 9 stubborn heartbeats refusing to quit, of a ferry sliding stern first into black water, taking the future with it. The pride of the Kriegsmarine lies 400 meters down, wrapped in darkness and silence, just where Leif Larsen put it.